Paul and I have known each other quite a while, and we've had lots of conversations, and this is just going to be one more fun one for me. But
you know all the answers.
Well,
So.
I know some of the answers, but I don't think I know all. Let me start with this one. So I didn't know. So when you
Can I start with a question first?
Yeah.
How many people have 2 cell phones? How many? 3? If you have there we go. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think the mobile phone has been the most disruptive innovation of my adult life. I think it has rewired the world. I think the internet and the mobile phone together, I think, probably have been amazing. When you took the reins of CEO at Qualcomm, it was already a $5 billion company. It was a CDMA company. But CDMA was not under attack, but the industry was trying to find a way to get out from underneath some patent situations there. And LTE was going to be the thing that was going to, kind of put Qualcomm in its place. And one of the first things you did as a CEO is you bought an LTE company.
Yep.
Why?
Okay, so LTE hadn't really yet come to the fore, but we saw this technology OFDMA, which is kind of the fundamental technology underneath 4G. And I had heard about it before, and I'd started a team working on it. This company, Flareon, had actually built a mobile system out of it. And it was getting traction, and it was really an effort by the industry, as he said, to sort of eat our lunch. And my philosophy is always, if somebody's going to eat my lunch, I want it to be me. So, it was part that. And the other thing was, as I took over, what I wanted to do was change the perception of the company about itself, that we were much bigger than just CDMA technology. And it was actually even one flavor of CDMA that we were known for, the one that Verizon and Sprint and some others used. And so it was really a statement to the company, we're going to do something different. We're not going to just protect the thing that we've built. We're going to go out and we're going to be great at all wireless technologies. And then, of course, that led to being great at computing and graphics.
Well, let me ask you something, because my guess is, I spent time with venture companies. My bet was inside Flareon, they got up every morning to beat Qualcomm. I mean, and now you've brought
to beat Qualcomm.
To beat Qualcomm. Oh, I see, just to kind of blow right past you?
No, they absolutely, that was their model. They wanted to be us. And they were actually guys that we knew well. I mean, people that we had worked with.
So were they happy? I'm trying to get a sense. How did the two?
They were happy. We knew them well. There was a ton of respect between the two companies, and the guys that were there, I think, wanted to work with us, and they saw that we could kind of be a launch pad for them to take their ideas and really go change the world with it. And I think they felt like it was going to be a slow progress the way they were going. With us, it could be big, and they knew our culture too, and our culture's a really nice culture for somebody who wants to innovate. So that was attractive.
You should give yourself. I mean, many small companies have wanted to use a large company to scale. I think very few large companies have been able to do what you were able to do. So I think that's probably part of this legendary leadership. It was interesting listening to a product company and then a business model company. I think of you as a technology company. Do you think of your company as a technology company?
Oh, for sure. I mean, our idea is we want to make the next new thing all the time. And, people sometimes complain about it, that, our prices are a little higher, but we want to sustain that by continuing to differentiate. And we want to be worth that extra price that you have to pay for the most leading edge chips, and you just got to continue to innovate all the time to do that. And so, I look at us as a company of ideas, and I actually look at our chipset business as a distribution channel of ideas. And the licensing business is a thing that lets us invest early in creating ideas before the market even gets there. We can invest, and those ideas aren't very valuable unless they get into the market, and the chipset business takes those and gets them into the market.
And your business model gives you a fund to take many bets, because not every technology bet's going to work.
Sure. I mean, I have my list of ones that haven't worked.
So we've talked about, it was interesting, because we talked to a design team, and we said, well, how do you lead from design point of view? And then Jeremiah was talking with Riley about, well, how do you lead business model transformation? So you're leading a technology company. How do you lead technology innovation? What is the role of the leader in that model?
To me, I mean, the way that we run the company, it's not a top-down strategic plan where we map everything out. It's really, I believe my role in the company was, and actually still is in a lot of ways, to articulate a vision for what's possible. And the nice thing about a vision is that it's very integrative. People can work on their own project and they can look up and say, okay, that's the direction that we're all heading. We'll do this, and this thing over here, that's not what we're doing. We're doing things that head in this direction. And so, you know, having that sort of compass instead of a map is really what's important. And I think that that's worked well. And I learned the lesson, actually, when I was running our handset business. And I had a different leadership technique, which is a really bad one, which is us versus them. And what I found there is that when I started to say, hey, we're great and those other guys are bad, sure, that brings your team together in a certain way, but everybody models the leader. So if I'm saying us versus them, all of a sudden everybody down the ranks are saying us versus them too. So engineering's blaming sales and marketing's blaming finance, and you know, it's like fractal. Everybody just kind of breaks into their own little pieces, and it really was disintegrative. And so when I took over as CEO, I wanted to articulate a positive way, a thing that brought people together, and it's worked extremely, extremely well.
Well, it certainly has, but the thing that's hard to imagine, I mean, when you describe that, I think, well, that's a great way to run a lab. That's a great way to run maybe, you know, Bell Labs. But you're a $25 billion company. You have a huge chip business that's a very, very meticulous, demands very meticulous planning. What is the role, how does your leadership integrate with a team that has to do such very long range and very, very demanding plans?
So the problem is that the chip design cycle is long. So you don't actually know exactly what the chip is going to be when you finally bring it out to market. You build all these components, and then either the chip has all of that stuff in it and you disable certain things and you optimize a little bit, or some get left out and other ones get put in and things like that. I mean, we're very late configuration for a chip company.
You are a late bind. It seems to me it's the total opposite of Intel. Or is that true? Do you think Intel has, I mean, to me, Intel has a much more controlling style. It's much more, I remember the copy exact formula from way back when. It just feels like a very, very different model. I'm shocked that both of you could be so successful as chip companies.
I mean, I don't know their internals. I do know they do this copy exact thing. And if you look at the sort of the fabless industry, that we're in the fabless industry, one of the things that you notice about the factories is you go in there and it's like Star Wars. There's little robots running across the roof, and they bring wafers from this machine over to this one, and it's just like all sorts of controlled chaos going on. But it's like jazz. It just it comes together and it works. And so it's I think that's been good for us too. I mean, we're all about, okay, well, how much inventory do you really want to have, and can you make that leaner, and how late can you package the parts, and how late can you test, and so the idea of flexibility pervades the company, and it really, it's flexibility, it's being really opportunistic. It's like you see something, you get yourself very prepared, but when you see the opportunity, you're like, boom, go, and that's the thing. And as we've gotten bigger, it's harder and harder to do that. I mean, you'll get people in the organization that'll be like, well, I got to protect the status quo. But that's death for a company like us. I mean, we need to innovate all the time, and we try and root that out, and we're better or worse at it at different periods of time. But it's in our mindset, that's how we got to be.
When it's a very late binding style, as opposed to dictating something at the beginning and fleshing it out, as you say, you're creating options for yourself all the time going forward. Has that caused you? I'm just trying to think about your leadership team. So that requires a lot of trust, and presumably that you're taking a bunch of risks that's pretty damn unnerving.
Yeah.
How do you convene the team very often? How do you maintain people's?
We're non-hierarchical, and we're incredibly organic. And when there's an issue, people self-organize to solve the problem, and it's still that way. And the senior leadership team, we're all friends. We all talk to each other all the time. There's no issues of, oh, you're playing in my sandbox, and no, you shouldn't do that. I mean, if somebody's helping you, they're helping you. It's not like they're trying to get something. It's not a zero-sum game. And I've seen that in other companies that we've dealt with where, we were working with certain companies that we were trying to do something really innovative with them, and the person that we were working, the champion of that project, just got attacked with the long knives by everybody else. We're not at all like that. And I think, it came from the point of view of respecting the people, seeing the people as really the core value of the company, and the fact that we don't have big factories and stuff like that. I think it came from that mindset and sort of having a university, almost a family feel to the company.
Did you find yourself at various points? Jack Welch often talks about one of the biggest challenges for a CEO is an incredibly talented manager who's a wrong fit for their culture.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself ever having to deal with that problem?
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
It's so, because we're so non-hierarchical, when you get people who come in from the outside, they'll often think, because they sit in a certain place with a certain title, all information must flow through them and then be distributed by them. It doesn't work that way at all in the company. And in fact, a senior manager can even be left out of the conversation if they're not value add. And so that really freaks people out. You can imagine, you're like, a senior guy and you're not included on the email trail. And, so people will complain about that. And they either sort of get it and they can adapt to it, or they don't get it and they end up going somewhere else.
And you said email. We're very interested in this whole interest in collaboration becoming, I think, trying in many ways to be more like Qualcomm. Are there technologies for collaboration? Is there something beyond email, or is email the backbone of the company? How do you actually maintain this collaborative fabric in terms of just supporting technology?
Email's, it's a big piece, and the fact that we all have it on our phones, and we've done email on mobile devices for a very long time, and text messaging. Voice is actually a little less. There was a time when I got so overwhelmed by my email before I really had a device I could carry around that I said to people, okay, you actually have to talk to me. It didn't scale very well that way, and I can scan through an awful lot of emails pretty quickly on my phone.
Are all your folks in one camp? It feels like with this collaboration, it's sounding like we're one family in one room or one building. How spread out are you, and how big is the company?
Yeah, so we're, depending on how you count, between 35 and 38,000 people, depending on contingent workforce and all that kind of stuff. And we're spread globally. And we learned the lesson how to work in a distributed organization. I'd say it took us probably 10 years. We had an office in Boulder and we had an office in Israel. And it was like for 10 years we probably sat there and said, should we shut these down? This isn't working. And the reason why it was happening that way was because we were trying to use them as job shops. We were like, okay, it's just a set of resources and throw them some stuff every so often. And it just doesn't work because it's so much easier to walk down the hall and meet somebody and have that serendipitous moment than it is to call somebody around the world. And so what we ended up finding was you actually have to give missions to those offices, and they would become the center of excellence for some subset. And now, of course, in San Diego, we still had people who knew it so that the interface was good, and we had exchanges of people and all sorts of stuff to make sure the culture was getting out there. But it was really this idea of giving missions. And I think it goes along with the vision part too, that you feel like you're all kind of marching a certain way. You've got a nice critical mass of people there. And it was sort of trendy to say that the world is flat and it really doesn't matter where you are. I don't find that. I think that the world's got very big lumps. There's a huge mountain here in Silicon Valley, and it's because you run into people. Churchill Club's a great example. The number of interesting things that have happened here for me, it's cool. I brought the first smartphone here, I don't know, it was 97 or something like that. And after my talk, the guy walks up to me and shows me video running on a Palm Pilot, and our smartphone was based on a Palm Pilot operating system. All of a sudden, we have video running on a smartphone. Back then, it was like, wow, didn't look incredibly awesome.
No, but it was technology.
But hey, the dog could dance.
Do you think we should call this thing a phone?
I still call it a phone.
Well, I do too. Do you make any?
Sometimes we say mobile devices, but it just sounds so goofy.
It does. What percent? If you had to take 100% of your use of that device, how much of it is talking on a telephone call?
It's so little these days. It really is true. And even some of that is like I want to send a short, voice, chat,
Broadcast or
or
whatever.
something like that, or So, but that's been the cool thing. I mean, getting so much stuff integrated into the phone, because there was a time when we'd tell people, hey, we put the internet in the phone, we put graphics, we put entertainment, and people were like, why do you keep putting all this junk in the phone? I just want to make phone calls. And all of a sudden, there was that tipping moment. I think Apple and Steve Jobs did an incredible job marketing these technologies. And they brought, they integrated some stuff, put really nice art around it, and it became mainstream. And all of a sudden, I'd go from cocktail parties where you're like the odd guy in the corner to everybody's saying, what's the next thing? What's coming? What's coming? What are you going to give me tomorrow? And that's fun.
So I want to follow up on one last thing. So because you're talking a lot about vision and how vision becomes integrative and aligning, and a couple of things that you do that maybe other CEOs don't. One is you do a lot of speaking in public. You're the World Economic Forum. You're around the world, and we talked about the bully pulpit and how. If you, talk about the effect of something you say in public on your own company. How does that work?
Well, so there are certain messages that I really try and get across to the company. And when I first took over, we were known for innovation and we were known for execution, but we weren't known as a great partner. People thought they had to work with us. So at my very first all hands meeting, I put up innovation, execution, and partnership. And I said, that's what we're about. And by doing that and just repeating it over and over and over, it just became part of the culture. And then started talking about, okay, we ship hundreds of millions of chipsets in a quarter. There's billions of people that are using these technologies. If you have an idea and you get it into the chipset, you can affect hundreds of millions of people's lives in 3 months. And that's a huge opportunity, but it's also a huge responsibility to do something good with that. And I repeat that. And people, they want to be part of something bigger than themselves. I find people love to be part of something and feel like they're changing the world for the better. And here they can, at Qualcomm, they could do it. And you just say it over and over, and people believe. And then you articulate the vision, whether it was, we're going CDMA, we're doing the wireless internet, we're integrating all this stuff into the phone. Our new thing is, kind of creating this digital sixth sense that integrates cyberspace and real space. And you just say it over and over, and people follow, because it also helps, success helps, right?
Success does help.
You build one success on the other, but people will follow even when you fail. Yeah. And as long as they know that when you fail, you're going to learn something from it, and you're going to kind of make, do the lemonade out of lemons kind of thing.
Yeah. So one last thing, I guess you were in a conversation with Peter Diamandis a little while ago, and the word tricorder came up, and talk a little bit about this. That people may not even know about the Tricorder X Prize, and kind of how does that fit into your whole leadership?
So that actually is another Churchill Club thing. John Rubinstein and I were being interviewed by Kara Swisher, I don't know, a few years ago, and we're talking about how all these Star Trek devices are now real, and she said, what's the next one? And we had been working on mobile health for a long time, and I said the tricorder. And kind of went on and talked about that and sensors and all the kinds of stuff that's going on that will enable it. And then Peter Diamandis, who runs the X Prize Foundation, came down to visit. I guess it was like 2 weeks later. It might have been a month, but it was really shortly after that. And we had some big deal that had gone well, and we had put $50 million into the Qualcomm Foundation, so there was money there. And he comes into my office for lunch, and he says, we had this idea at our visioneering session, and we want to do the tricorder. And I said, I want to do the tricorder too, and we're going to do it. And it was like, okay, well, that's a $20 million check. And I said, right there, literally, it didn't take much more than a few minutes. I said, we're going to go do that. And the idea there is that we've been working on mobile health for a long time, and there's a lot of successes in mobile health, but it's not well known. It's not mainstream at this point. It's probably more mainstream in developing countries maybe than here. And I'd like to create that same moment where there's a tipping point and people all of a sudden go from I'm pushing it on them to you know, it's pulling.
It's like the S Tesla. All of a sudden now we're
Exactly. Now it's coming, and that moment will be great because it's gonna change our lives. I mean, using mobile technology and connecting up is going to change the way healthcare is done.
What do you think the prize idea itself, the prize as a mechanism for visionary leadership, what does that do for you?
I mean, what it does is it brings in a lot of other people's efforts. It's very similar to what we do in our normal business, which is we provide the enabling, either technology, or in this case, we provided the money and maybe a little bit of technology also. And then other people spend their effort and they build on it. And so it's so much greater than the sum of the parts. I mean, you really get great synergies out of working with the partners, and this is the same kind of thing. And it's a global competition, so there's teams from all around the world. And one of those teams, or maybe more, is going to win this prize. And they're going to diagnose 15 diseases better than a panel of doctors with a 5-pound device that even a normal consumer can use. And that will be a great day.
And that will be an extraordinary day. Paul, thank you so much. This was great.